Hello, it's Friday, it's 9 o'clock. I'm Martine Croxall. Welcome to the programme. No amount of apologies will bring her back. The husband of a pregnant woman who died of sepsis tells us he and their 2 young children are struggling to cope with the loss. Rita Sider was 15 weeks pregnant when she died. While her husband Bhushan says it's been so difficult watching his children cry for their mummy. Medicines derived from cannabis will become available on prescription, says the government. Parents say they're delighted.
This announcement today gives every person in that situation hope that they can try this medication and that it just might work. And I've always been clear that it doesn't always work for everyone, but when it does work, it works like a miracle, and every person should have the chance to try it.
Also ahead, storms may finally dampen the hot temperatures, but why the extreme heat is causing misery for holidaymakers.
2.5 hours queuing from the motorway down to the check-in terminals, sat on the motorway embankment in 34 degrees heat with ants crawling over our feet. The water, absolutely ridiculous.
Hello and welcome to the programme. We're live until 11 this morning. Later in the programme, the government has said it'll make it easier for doctors to prescribe medicines derived from cannabis. The decision to relax regulations around its use comes after a number of high-profile cases involving children with severe epilepsy. We'll be speaking to one mum who says medicinal cannabis has helped to control her daughter's seizures. Be interested to hear what you think about this, or indeed any of the stories we're talking about today. Use the hashtag #VictoriaLive. If you're emailing and you're happy for us to contact you and maybe want to take part in the programme, please include your phone number in your message. If you text us, you'll be charged at the standard network rate. Our top story today, it's been called Furnace Friday, but it now seems unlikely that today's temperatures will reach an all-time British record. Storms broke out overnight in the northeast of England and the east of Scotland, dampening chances that the UK will experience a temperature above 38.5 degrees centigrade, the level set in 2003. However, much of the country will see it rise above 30 degrees, with a high of 34 expected in East Anglia. Well, the heat is causing misery for Eurotunnel passengers, where continued disruption is being blamed on the extreme heat. Thousands of tickets have been cancelled in an attempt to ease queues. Well, let's get more from Simon Jones, who's in Folkestone. Simon, what are the problems that they're having to contend with?
Well, the bad news is I've spoken to Eurotunnel and they are preparing for another day of problems because they're saying they simply cannot control the weather. So people turning up at the terminal down there are expecting a wait of around 90 minutes. But to actually get onto the terminal and through check-in in the first place, they're also facing a wait of around 90 minutes. So it's going to take around 3 hours to get on a train. Now, we're expecting around 12,000 cars at the terminal today. It was going to be a busy day anyway, with people heading off on their holiday. So all those thousands of cars, many of them packed with holiday makers. And the big problem is being blamed on the air conditioning, which might sound a bit strange, but Eurotunnel says if you imagine hot cars driving onto already hot trains, and in some of the carriages simply the temperatures were too high, so for welfare reasons they decided they couldn't use those particular carriages. So that meant trains were going not fully packed and the backlog was quick to build up here.
How flexible are Eurotunnel being over tickets?
Well, if you were due to travel on a day ticket today, simply heading over to France to enjoy a day out there, those tickets have been cancelled and they affect around 400 passengers. The company is also saying if you don't have to travel today, then they will offer you a refund, because what they want to do is try to clear the backlog as quickly as possible and get holidaymakers on their way, because that's what they're concentrating on, the families who are going to be caught up in this at the start of their holidays. But the bad news is we've been here during the course of the morning since dawn, and it's getting hotter and hotter, and the hotter it gets, then the company says it's going to have to start taking out some more of the carriages, and when that happens then the build-up of delays is very quick.
Simon, thank you very much. Simon Jones at Folkestone with the latest from Eurotunnel. And we'll be talking about the impact that this heat wave is having on various types of travel later on in the programme, around 10 o'clock. If you're experiencing difficulties on the roads, rails, or trying to get away on holiday, perhaps from one of the airports, do get in touch. We'd like to hear from you. Anita McVeigh is in the BBC Newsroom with a summary of the rest of the day's news. Morning, Anita.
Morning, Martine. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. A controversial move to privatise some probation services in England and Wales is to be reversed, costing the government £170 million. The contracts will end 2 years early after ministers admitted they're not delivering the reduction in reoffending they promised. Here's our Home Affairs correspondent, Tom Simons.
This is the kind of innovative idea the government hoped to encourage when it privatised probation services. It's a sobriety tag, which detects if the wearer's been drinking. It's designed to be worn by offenders who broke the law while under the influence. The scheme is operated by a community rehabilitation company set up 3 years ago to manage lower-level offenders not in prison or just released. In England and Wales, there are 21 CRCs. They're paid by their results, how much they cut reoffending. But they've been criticised for not maintaining the crucial relationship between offenders and their probation officer. There has been a 2% fall in the numbers of people ending up back in prison. But the government says the companies bid too low for their contracts, resulting in the need to cut costs and services. So ministers are rethinking.
It is important that we have a probation system that helps people rehabilitate. The existing contracts are not working as well as they might do. They're not working as well for us in order to ensure that we can help rehabilitation. So we want to bring those to an end early. We want to improve some of the services in the interim.
The government will spend an extra £170 million to shore up the service for the next 2 years. Ministers admit the changes were ambitious, but they say they want the private sector to continue to be involved in a future system. Tom Simons, BBC News.
Police have appealed for help to catch a man found guilty of killing a woman in a speedboat crash on the River Thames. Jack Shepherd, who went on the run after skipping bail before his trial, will be sentenced today for the death of Charlotte Brown. Ben Ando reports.
December 2015, and Jack Shepherd takes his date Charlotte Brown for a late-night trip on the River Thames in his speedboat. After reaching the Houses of Parliament, they turned back. But moments later, the boat capsized after hitting something floating in the water. A police helicopter filmed the moment Shepherd, who was clinging to the wreckage of the upturned boat, was rescued. But Charlotte, who liked to be known as Charlie, spent too long in the icy water and died later in hospital. Shepherd, who had been warned before about speeding on the Thames, admitted to the police that he hadn't asked her to wear a life jacket.
Neither of us obviously were wearing life jackets, although there were two, like in between the two seats in the front, but she wouldn't have known they were there because I didn't point them out, and we weren't wearing them anyway, and I didn't even ask if she could swim or anything. And
tests revealed the boat had faulty steering. Shepherd, who'd been bailed, given is one of life imprisonment. Ben Ando, BBC News at the Old Bailey.
5 people have died in a crash involving a minibus and a 4x4 car in Aberdeenshire. Police say that the collision, which took place last night on the A96, has left one other person with life-threatening injuries. Let's get more now with our reporter Ken Gibson, who's in our Aberdeen newsroom. Ken, what more do you know about the circumstances of this horrific crash?
Well, good morning, Anita. This crash, it happened shortly before midnight on the A96, just near the small town of Keith in Murray. It involved an SUV and a minibus. And as you say, 5 people were killed in that accident. 5 more have been taken to Raigmore Hospital in Inverness. We don't know the condition of all of them, but we have been told that one of them has potentially life-threatening injuries. Police so far haven't given any details about the casualties or what they were doing on the road at that time of night, but obviously this is quite a serious tragedy this morning.
OK, Ken, thank you very much for that update. Ken Gibson in Aberdeen. North Korea has started to hand over the remains of American soldiers killed during the Korean War in the 1950s. Their repatriation was agreed at last month's Singapore summit between President Trump and Kim Jong-un. It's estimated that more than 5,000 US soldiers went missing in action between 1950 and 1953. 1,800 migrant children have been reunited with their families after a judge ordered the US government to stop its zero-tolerance currently no coherent plan to reunite hundreds more children with their relatives.